Refuah Shleima. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'hakohen hiya b'dvoroi.
Amen. So Menchi, you can do a mute from
Chai
where you
v'chai
are.
v'levracha.
Menchi,
Okay.
as the host, you can do a mute if you want for everyone.
So, if we'll take out a chumash, please be so kind to take out your chumashim. And that is, being that we're, Baruch Hashem, sandwiched in between the Bnei Eretz Yisroel, the Bnei Chutz La'aretz. As mentioned last week, that the Bnei Chutz La'aretz will be reading the Parsha Behaalosecha the coming week, and the Bnei Eretz Yisroel already read Parshas Behaalosecha the past Shabbos. So we are, so to speak, so we will address Parshas Behaalosecha. So be so kind and open up your Chumashim. It makes no difference what edition you have. Even if you don't have the stone edition, nevertheless, open up your Chumash. And surely those who just read Parshas Behaalosecha, the Bnei Eretz Yisroel, and they were Mavad the Sedra, and they learned Chitas, and they heard the Kriyas HaTorah, they surely would appreciate the points we will raise in the Chumash. It's like obvious in your face. And the ones who are Mirz Hashem going to learn or hear the Parsha will, I'll share with you what is raised by the, just take out your Chumash. In Parshas Behaalosecha, Kapitel Tes, starting from Posuk Tes Vav. Excuse me, does everybody have the sheet was meant to be posted? Just by the way. Excuse me, Menchi?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, so in the Chumash.
Hello, Menchi, I don't have.
It's on the WhatsApp. If you have WhatsApp.
How can that be from the Talmidim of Hokim, from the Mitglieder, from the Rogatchover Shir? Was heißt you don't have? I can't believe it. He didn't.
Under control.
Okay, thank you. All righty. So starting from in Kapitel Tes, starting from Posuk Tes Vav, going on until Posuk Chav Gimel. If you can work out the psukim, I'll close shop right now. You get it? Start reading, you'll see what's going on. And I'll tell you what the biggest pelle is. Rashi sagt gar nicht, und ich kann nicht was zu sagen. Und ich gehe gar nicht sagen. I'll just share with you what some say, what they raise, and we'll go on from there without really treating it. The pasuk starts off in Pasuk Tezavah. Uvayoim hokim es hamishkon, kisa ha'onon es hamishkon la'oil ha'edus. So the onon covered over the mishkon, on the oil ha'edus, like the Ramban says, not on the whole chotzer, just on the oil moed. In the evening, on the mishkon, you had kimari eshad boiker, you had this fiery Mara Eish in the evening until the morning for the nighttime. And he goes on to say, it wasn't just on the day the Mishkan was assembled, but Ken Yiyatomid, Ha'on and Yechasenu, the on and the cloud covers over the Mishkan, Mara Eish Loila, and the fiery light was at night. And he goes on to say another message. Well, the Fiha, Oloisa Onan, when the Onan rises, lifts up from the oil, then you'll travel. And where the Onan will rest, there you will encamp. And he goes on to say, it's Al Pi Hashem Yisu B'nai Yisroel. You'll journey based on what Hashem tells you. And you will encamp Al Pi Hashem. And this will be Al Pi Kol Yemei Asher Yishkein Onan Al HaMishkan Yachnu. As long as the cloud will rest, will be upon the Mishkan, then you'll camp. It'll be for many days. They won't travel all those days. And sometimes it will be just a short amount of time, says Pasuk Chof. It'll be Al Pi Hashem Yachnu, Al Pi Hashem Yisrael. You will travel and journey or rest, as Hashem will tell you. Then there will times that will be just from the evening until the morning. You'll travel in the morning. It'll be a day and a night, and then you'll travel with after. No, you'll explain. Ich frage euch, ihr wisst, was tut sich da? Sie Torah Hashem Tmima. And it looks as if the Torah is, number one, repeating himself over and over again, number one. Number two, even when it repeats itself, is telling you everything in a different order. What's going on? You're going to have to say, as we always mention from the Maram Prague and the Shalom HaKodesh, Sha'Kodesh Baruch Hu, mit Aberes Be'el Yoinim, Umaramezes B'tachtoinim. If you want to take these psukim kipshutoi, it's garnish poshet. Figure it out. But let me let you know that just about all Mefarshim tackle this parasha, if you're allowed to use that lashon, b'derech koved. That is the Rishonim Beroishim. The Rishonim, the Ramban, he'll take out the Ramban ala Torah, and he goes into detail why the Pasuk has to go into all these fine points and these fine details. Val derech zeh, the Sifsei Kohen, the Shach ala Torah, Migurei ha'arizal, from the Talmud, not from Bnei Brak. I said Migurei ha'arizal, from the cubs of the Arizal, the Shach ala Torah, Sifsei Kohen, on the Gedolah Mikubolim, in his Pirush, he brings Rabbeinu Bechai and he goes into himself into the details to explain all the ins and outs and back and forths of the Lashonis of the Psukim. Also, you have Rabbi Chaim Paltiel, one of the Rishonim. He asks often. Mamish asks the Shaila. He says, "What's geht da on?" It's Mamish Tomua that the Lashonis, and it repeats itself in the opposite, not in the same mode and order. So he too goes out of his way. The Orach Chaim HaKodesh, Al-Asar, you'll look in the Orach Chaim, in the Sforno, also, just about all the Mefarshim. And basically they're all saying the same thing. The Al-Shech HaKodesh also goes into detail, it doesn't end. Val derech zeh Barbanel. I think the simplest, smoothest to appreciate what's going on, take out your Abarbanel, Rabbi Yitzchak, Don Yitzchak Abarbanel. So the Abarbanel Poshet simplifies it. You know, he makes it like smooth, and you're able to go through the Psukim. Now, there is other Gedolei Yisroel and different Mefarshim, like the Sifsei Tzadik, the Gehoise Rebbe from Pilz, yeah, Sifsei Tzadik. So brings also, Gestalzach also, and raises issues with the Lashonis of the Psukim, etc. So we're not gonna go into that. But this is just the lead up to what we want to deal with tonight. And let me just say as follows. The gist of all these Mefarshim is as follows. That mainly HaKadosh is conveying, and Moshe Rabbeinu is conveying the shvach of Yidden. The praise of Am Yisroel. In other words, go into the details and you'll see. In other words, Yidden weren't in control. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're relying, they're Yidden, like it says, right? They went into the desert and relying on HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Emunah and Bitochen. And that's the way their encampment was, and that's the way their journeys were. They didn't decide on their own to journey. They didn't decide on their own when to encamp. They didn't, after a long trip, you would expect that they're tired, they're knocked out, and they would stay put for some time. And then before they turn around, that's a word, and I don't know what it is. I think I used to hear that in my days. That's a word in Yiddish or Polish or Russian, I don't know, or in Galicia. Till you get a chance to be mizuktis to unwind, all of a sudden they have to start packing up and leaving again. And then all of a sudden, when they're already leaving and they're journeying, you would think they're going to settle down for some time. And now before they turn around, they're encamping. Before they turn around, they're journeying, and it's all Pi Hashem. So basically, all the Mefarshim seem to conclude, and Dafka, the Torah goes out of its way to speak about all the details. That some was only for 24 hours, some was only for a day, some was for many years. So if they're for many years, you get sick and tired, you want to get moving, and it's not a geschmacka place, because there are a lot of mosquitoes in this area, and you want to get moving. Val derech zeh, certain places were wonderful, so why should you leave? You'd rather stay there for some time. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, Yidden followed throughout, in all details, whatever the circumstances, that's b'shvach b'nei Yisroel. That's what it says in most Mefarshim. In all the Mefarshim I saw, what I've seen, the couple of names I mentioned, you won't look there. And here we're coming, I believe, and that's what is radical. What's this radical? I don't know if you're allowed to say such a thing. Here we come to a pirush of one of the Gedolei Yisroel who seems to go totally off track and doesn't follow with the rest of them. And I believe because the Rogatchover Gaon, we're not talking about the Rogatchover Gaon, we're talking about one of the Rishonim, and that is the Psikta Zutris, the copy which we posted, all of you have in front of you. He seems to take a total different stand. Again, I was looking at it and I was wondering, why is the Rogatchover go to town with this shtickle Psikta? And I look at the Psikta and I take a wonder that he's mamish going off, it's not left field. He has his own take, and different than all the Gdoli or Rishonim v'Achronim in how they understand and how they analyze these psukim. And listen to what the Psikta Zutrasa says. Now you have to realize the Psikta Zutrasa, it was originally known as Psikta. See, now there's a Psikta Rabbosi and a Psikta de Rav Kana. That's from Tanoim va'Amoyroim. This Psikta is not a medrash, even though it sounds like a medrash, because and it even has a nickname, another name, which is called Medrash Lekach Toiv. Okay, and originally he called it Medrash Lekach Toiv, because his name was Eliezer Tuvia, Rabbi Eliezer Tuvia. So therefore he starts off with all the psukim and the parshas which deal about Toiv, etc. So throughout the ages, let me just say, so he's one of the Rishonim, and he's recorded and mentioned in many, many, many Rishonim who followed him. And he's mentioned also in many Achronim who had the text of the Psikta. Now, at some stage in history, we only had the sections of Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Dvorim. And later on throughout history, they also found the Bereshis and the Shmois and Rab Shlomo Baber, who is known to publish from manuscripts different Kisveyodos from Rishonim, etc., and Meforshei Torah. So he has a whole interesting introduction to who he was, whose student he was, which Rishonim quote him. So if you're able to get your hand on a hot copy of a Psikta Zutrasa, I'm sure you'll appreciate reading his introduction. Very, very informative. But in a nutshell, he lived at the end of the 11th century and the beginning of the 12th century. So look how far back he's going. Was before the Rambam. I once mentioned this. I think it's Rav Shlomo Baber or whatever. He may mention that it could very well be we have Shvere Rambams and we look for a source in those Shvere Rambams. And there's one Rambam Yodua in Hilchos Days where the Rambam says what people do, and it's the opposite way of what should be done al pi Torah, about getting married and having a livelihood and buying a house, and people do it the wrong way and when it should be al pi Torah, etc., etc. And they find the source for this Rambam dafke from the Psikta, and the Psikta is found in the Psikta Zutrasa, and it's interesting. So I think it's Rab Shlomo Baber who says it's hard to believe that the Rambam took and sourced the source for what he recorded in halacha from the Sefer Psikta Zutrasa, even though he's before him, because he was Mechachmi Roimi from Rome. He originated from Greece, from Rome. And B'meila, therefore, the Rambam writes in a letter about the Chachmei Roimi that they're not such great Chachamim or something like that. So B'meila, Rav Shlomo Baber says, hard to believe the Rambam took a mocker from Psikta Zutrasa. Listen, once you go into that area, you can say a lot of things which I don't know, there is gehalten, it's not my business. So either he does take the mocker from him, or if he doesn't, it makes no difference. But das is border, that is border kumnusa, that he was one of the Gdolei Rishonim, he was a halachist. And and here we go. Look at the section which we highlighted. I highlighted as follows, if you noticed. Take a look. So before we come to the highlight, let me just say to you as follows. On the pasuk, in your test, pasuk your test, kapitel test, pasuk your test. There the Torah says as follows. An interesting lashon which is not found before, even though it's repeated later on. It says in the pasuk of Aharecha onan ala mishkan yomim rabim, and when the cloud will be on the Mishkan many days, v'shomru v'nei Yisroel es mishmeres Hashem v'lo yiso, and the Yidden will keep the keeping of Hashem. In other words, the commandment of Hashem v'lo yiso. The same lashon is found later on in pasuk Chav Gimel, right? Es mishmeres Hashem shomoru al pi Hashem biyad Moshe. Now, the Rogatchover Gaon has a statement, has a gloss, has his ha'ara on this section of the pasuk. Now, I'm unsure, unfortunately, I don't have the Ksav Yad of the Rogatchover in front of me, so I don't know exactly what section, in other words, if you have a Tzofnas Panech ala Torah Parshas Behaalosecha, Kapitel Tes, Pasuk Yud Zayin and Pasuk Yud Tes, you will see that the Rogatchover Gaon quotes the section of the pasuk. It's quoted the section of the pasuk, and he highlights a point. Now, the question: I'm unsure if the Rogatchover himself recorded the sections of the pasuk which relate to his pirush, or the matpisim, those who published the Rogatchover, cut and paste and took the sections of the pasuk. So there's certain points of the pasuk the Rogatchover clearly addresses. There's certain points which he doesn't address. But possibly, especially if the Rogatchover Gaon recorded those sections of the Psukim, he may have surely considered them. Possibly, I want to say, and especially it'll come in an obvious fashion after we finish our discussion, that he may have actually focused, and the focus of his whole talk may be actually on the whole of the Pasuk, on the Lashon, V'shamru v'nei Yisroel es mishmeres Hashem v'lo yiso, and also, as it says in Pasuk Chav Gimel, es mishmeres Hashem shamoru. Actually, we're going to see that the Psikta, Rab Tuvia Rabbi Eliezer himself makes an issue of it. Okay, now immediately the Rogatchover Gaon says, on the Pasuk, on the section of Yutes, where it says in Pasuk Yutes, and it seems that he's contrasting this with the Pasuk Tes Yud Zayin, Tes Zayin, where here we find, in Pasuk Yutes it says, "V'shomnu b'nei Yisroel es mishmeres Hashem v'lo yisou." Correct? V'lo yisou. And then, listen to what the Rogatchover says. V'lo yisou, says the Rogatchover, mivur, da'av isur lav lisa. This Pasuk, v'lo yisou, is saying that there is an Isur Lav. Torah says V'lo Yiso. Now all the Meforshim seem to say V'lo Yiso means that they wouldn't travel because they followed with the Anon and Moshe Rabbeinu, as Rashi explains. Al Pi Hashem Yiso, Al Pi Hashem Yachim, Al Pi Hashem Yiso. The Rogatchover says, when it says V'lo Yiso, this conveys, from this it's Mevur, it's explained that this is an Isur Lav. Isur Lav would mean that whenever Torah prohibits something without penalty, where there's no Chiyuv Kores, or there's no Chiyuv Misa, right? So there's no punishment or penalty. Nevertheless, the Torah tells us you should not do it. So Torah says, Loi, don't do so and so. Says the Rogatchover, when it says V'lo yiso, in the context of this pasuk, it's conveying that there is an Isur Lav to travel, which this already is a fascinating pirush and takes a total different stand than all the Meforshim. Because as mentioned, all the Meforshim don't approach these parshas as there are commandments, there are tzivuyim, what to do or what not to do. It's all about the praise of Am Yisrael, what they actually did, what they implemented. They followed Hashem's requests, and they followed all the orders of Hashem. But Hashem never prohibited them and told them, don't travel. V'lo yiso means they didn't travel. L'maisa, it could be the Rogatchover is medayik in the v'lo yiso, it doesn't say v'lo noso. And I noticed the Or HaChaim HaKodesh makes a point of the v'lo yiso, it doesn't say v'lo noso, and I understand the Ponim Yofos Al HaTorah also makes a point of that. So exactly what is disturbing the Rogatchover going, sorry, I think that's the wrong lashon to use, but what exactly the Rogatchover meant to what noticed in the pasuk, I'm unsure yet, but let's go on. So this in itself seems to approach. Why do I see that something's going wrong here? Okay, excuse me. This seems to approach the parsha in a total different light. Now listen to what he goes on to quote from the Psikta. Now let's take a look at the Psikta. Take a look in your Psikta, what I highlighted there. On the pasuk of Aharich onon v'shamru v'nei Yisroel. Listen to what he says. Nemar kan shmira. Says the Psikta of Tuvi Rabbi Eliezer as follows. Nemar kan shmira v'nemar b'shabas shmira. Here it says v'shamru v'nei Yisroel. Now every yid out there, if you say v'shamru, you surely know what v'shamru is, right? And even if you don't say V'shamru, you know what V'shamru is. And I, as a little child, was davened in a Chabadske shtibel, where a lot of Eden Chabadske wouldn't say V'shamru, because the Alter Rebbe says not to say V'shamru, but I had this Galatianer Yid beside me. Oh, er hat gequitscht und gehilchet. Zu sagen, mit Absuchen V'shamru, and he yelled at the roof in his ear. The roof couldn't cope with it, and we all couldn't cope with it. We let him yell. So V'shamru, if you say it and if you don't say it, we all know of it, right? Either because you say it by the Kiddush, even if you don't say it to the davening, but it's also in the davening. So, Nemer kan Shmira, but Nemer b'Shabbos Shmira. Zog der Psikte, says Rabbi Rabbi Eliezer, Malal and Chayiv Misa, just like by Shabbos. If you don't keep Shabbos, and you machal Shabbos, you Chayiv Misa, Afkan Chayiv Misa. Here too, you Chayiv Misa. You hear what's going on? And I have in my Psikte, you don't have it, because it's cut and paste. But in the section of Vayikra Bamidbar Dvorim, one of the Rabbonim who published the manuscript. So in the Bir Hora'im, he's known as Rav Moshe Padva from Karlin. So he says, what does it mean? Afkan Chayiv Misa. Im holchu me'atzmo. If Yidden went on their own, bli helois ha'onon, without the onon lifting, or bli reshus Moshe, without Moshe's reshus, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you're Chayiv Misa. You hear what's going on? Shalafi Zed, the Rogatchover says, not just is there a lav, it's an Isser lav to travel, but according to Rabbi Tuvia Rabbi Eliezer, according to the Psikta Zutra, there's a Chayiv Misa. That's what Shtuchach. Mo'uyindik. Yefarlach. And he goes on to say, he brings a raya. He has a raya. It goes on to say, "Vayapilu lalois el reishahor." Over there by the Ma'apilim. By the Ma'apilim is after the story in Parsha Shlach. In other words, the Eden read Parshas Behaalosecha this week in Bnei Eretz Yisroel, and you'll be reading Emir Hashem Parsha Shlach this week. So the fact is that. Do you hear me? Yeah, all good. So So in Parsha Shlach, after the story of the Meraglim and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they said we're not going into Eretz Yisroel. Then there were a group of Yidden who uncompromisingly vayapilu lalois hahara. Let's take out a Chumash Parsha Shlach. Do you mind? How about taking out the Parsha Shlach? We'll see it inside. So it says Vayashkimu bab boiker. Yashkibu Bab Boiker, Parsha Shlach, Kapitel Yudalid, Posuk Mem. By Yashkibu Bab Boiker, they wake up in the morning, and like I think the Psikta Zutra says there, that they were thinking of Mekayim mitzvah, by Yalwal, Reshahar, they went up to the top of the mountain, they says, we're going, Hinenu, we're Hinenu. Hashem says, we sin, but now we said we changed our mind, we're going up to Eretz Yisrael. Hashem says, you're not going to be matzliach. Al ta'alu. Kein Hashem bikir b'chem. Don't go there because you're going to be plagued by your enemy. And he says, why? What's going to be? You're going to go up to the mountain. You're going to go that area, to that distance, to that area. You should know Amaleki, Aknani, Shem lefnechem, and you're going to be wiped out. They'll kill you. Look what the pasuk says. Vayapilu lalis el reshahor. They uncompromisingly go up on the mountain, and the Torah makes a point to say, in other words, the Aron remained in its place. In other words, the Onan did not lift. So everything stayed stationary. It's just these people went on their own up the mountain. And look what happened. So the Psikta brings a raya from the Ma'apilim, that we bow. Look, he says, because of a year that Canaan Yeshiva Bahara, the cross of Yakum Vayaksum. So what is the Psikta bringing a raya? He bowed over there. The situation was that they traveled without Moshe Rabbeinu, without the unlifting. And it says in the Torah that they traveled, and what happened? That they ended up being Vayakum Vayaksum at Chorma. Mizeh, that we see that there's a Chayiv Misa. If you travel before the honor lifts, and the Orein starts journeying, so then you do it on your own, you chayiv misa. At kan divrei apsikta. Was tut sich da? So now, if not for the chiyuv misa, we could have possibly learned that, yes, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to say, I believe that's what the Rogatchover wants to bring from the Psikta, that we see from the Psikta that there's a severity, there's something going on here, that it is not just an Isur Lav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, don't travel. Not just is not talking in their praise. It's not just saying their praise, but it's also telling them and commanding them, you're prohibited to travel. Not just an Isur Lav, but to the degree, it's so serious that if you travel, then you will be chayiv misa. What's behind this? What's going on there? Why? Why should there be a chayiv misa? Tzorich birur v'tzorich la'ayin v'tzorich birur. Was will the Psikta sagen? What is he out to say? And what's behind what the Psikta is saying? And I believe that's why, as the Rogatchover appreciates, we see from the Rogatchover Torah, he appreciates to tackle the hard, the schwerste Rambams. Wherever the Rabbi has a problem with the Rambam, or wherever all the Meforshei or Rambam have problems with the Rambam, and no one can get out of it, that's where the Rogatchover comes into the picture and saves the day. So that makes me think, I've looked and searched, if someone should quote this Psikta and analyze it or deal with it or treat it or something, and this has been out there for ages, like I said. Rishonim and Achroinim had the Psikta. They saw it. Now the question is, were they mailamayim from it? Did they just miss it? Or did they just didn't know how to tackle it? Until the days of the Rogatchover Gaon, who finally treats this shtickle Psikta. What's happening here? And the Rogatchover says something fascinating to treat what the message of the Psikta is, but I think we need some introduction, some additional general knowledge, general information to appreciate what the Rogatchover Gaon wants to say. And this is as follows. And here we go to something, an interesting and a bit of a journey about an interesting topic, which I think, I'm not sure, but I have a feeling not very many people are acquainted with this topic. Listen, I'm not out there, so I don't know, but you have to go to the yeshivas and the bottom midrashim. Something makes me think that even the big London aren't very well acquainted with the sugya, even though it's a whole perik in Rambam and Hilchas Klei HaMikdash perik Vav, but Vibald, it's not a sugya in Kotshim. It happens to be a sugya in Masechta Tainis, and also Derech Agav, in different places in Shas, Derech Agav only. And also a shtickle in Masechta Megillah, Nuich Freigach, well learned Masechta Tainis. The beginners who want to take a short Masechta, and doesn't have too much Tosfos, doesn't have too much Rishonim, but they take Masechta Tainis. But the big Rashke Bahags and the big London, Masechta Tainis, it's in Seder Moyed, it's only a Masechta, Gefährlich, after learn Kotshim's passt nicht. The Shagasariya wrote a Sefer Gvura Sari on Masechta Tainis, and mit Yogi passt, der passt nicht. So anyway, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong with my take, but that's my gut feeling. And even in general, Yidden aren't very, very well acquainted that's my feeling. Now, actually, it's found, a mention, who we're going to discuss, is found in our tefillas, which we say every single day. And I believe it's in all the Nischois, because it's found in the Torah. If you take out a Torah, Rechaim, Simen, Memches, in Ilches Birchas HaShachar, there's a Riboin HaOlamim, which we're meant to say daily. And for those who have the Sidurim, I believe in all the Sidurim, it's some with different Nischois. It's in Rabbi Emden Siddur, it's in the Yitzhak Tfilis, in the Tzlois Avram, it's in the Chabad Siddur. And there are different Nischois, but the general is there. What do we say? I'll read it for you. Master of the world, you commanded us to bring the Korban Matomid in its time, and to bring the incense. And the Koyanim should do their they should officiate in the Avodah, in the service in the Beis Hamikdash. And the Levim should chant to do the Shira, the Yisroel b'ma'amodom, and the Israelites attending the service. Yisroel b'ma'amodom. Okay, here we go. And we conclude. Ve'ein nebach, nowadays, Chorov Beis Hamikdash, ein lanu lokein b'avidosoi, v'lo levim b'duchonoi, v'lo Yisroel b'ma'amodoi. So therefore we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, We beseech HaKadosh Baruch Hu that whatever we said now should be as if, and it should be mekubal kilu ikrabna korban tamid b'moyadoi, as if we have brought the korban tamid in the right time. V'amadnu al ma'amodoi, and we were maimed al ma'amodoi. You know what that means? V'amadnu al ma'amodoi. And we, and it is, and v'amadnu al ma'amodoi. We burned the incense. We have offered the daily service in his appointed time, attended its service. Doesn't mean to say you went to shul. Attended its service means, okay, all good. So we mentioned it many times. And we know of the Anshe Maimed. That's a Lashon HaMishnah. Anshe for Yidden who learn Mishnayis and Masech the Tainis Perik Beis. There's a Lashon Anshe Mamad. There's Anshe Mishmar. And there's Bote Ovois Beis Av, and then there's Anshe Maimed, and they're Mamodos. And I know in this, you take out a Yagiv Emdus, there's a whole Seder of Mamodos, which you say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, etc. Rabbi Yagiv Emden says, I don't know who was Masada, these Mamodos. If you have a Rabbi Yagiv Emden Siddur, he says, I don't know who was Masada it. He doesn't seem to follow what the Mishnah says and what the Shas says. And I don't know exactly what his intent is, and I don't know who the offer is. So I don't know if it identifies with the Ma'amodos, which we're going to discuss, but it makes no difference. But that's the inyan of Anshe Maimed. What was the Anshe Maimed? Ma'amodos. So the Mishnah tells us in Masech Tainis, which is recorded in the Rambam in Hilchas Klei HaMikdash. Let me read for you what it says. There's a din as follows. The Rambam tells us in Hilchas, this is found, like I said, in the Mishnah, Masech Tainis, Perik Daled Mishnah Beis. And also in the Gemara in Daf Chav Vav and in Daf Chav Zayin of Masech Tainis, and mentioned throughout the Shas, by the way, in many different places of the Shas, as we'll go on to mention through this evening. So the Rambam tells us in Hilchas Klei HaMikdash, in Sefer Avodah, Perik Shishi Halach Aleph, says the Rambam, this is more or less a verbatim of the Mishnah. It's not possible that a korban, I'm going to read it in the English for you, it'll be easier for those who don't follow the Hebrew. It is impossible for the sacrifice of a person to be offered without him standing in attendance. Now, the communal offerings are the sacrifices of the entire Jewish people. But it is impossible for the entire Jewish people to stand in the temple courtyard at the time they are being offered. Therefore, the prophets of the first era ordained that there be selected, upright, and sin-fearing Jews who should serve as the agents of the entire Jewish people to stand and observe the offering of the sacrifices. They were called the men of the Ma'amad. And the men of the Ma'amad, and I've seen many different interpretations, definitions, how they translate Ma'amad, and I've seen the Yisroel translates the Ma'amad to be interpreted as how did they translate it? Mind of business, who cares? Whatever they say. Ma'amad means like designated people. Let me see if I can find it for you. Yeah? Okay, but anyway, Tauger translates Ma'amad means standing, right? Meloshin Amida, standing. And they would stand over the sacrifice or stand in prayer, as stated. The term also has the connotation of status and dignified position. That's a ma'amad, Okay, or stationed. I think the Art Scroll translates ma'amad means stationed. Somewhere they say that. Whatever, but you get the gist of it. The gist of it is
a person of a high position, a person of rank. A person of significance.
Yes, that's what we said a minute ago, a dignified position. Thank you very much for repeating what we just said. Appreciate it.
You have to be dignified.
I'm telling you what Rabbi Tauger says. He's a professor. Who just said that? A professor. Professor Kingsley. Thank you. Thank you. Yashakoyach being. Thank you. Okay. What do I want to say? So there's a concept of Anshe Maimed. Where is this Anshe Maimed coming from? What do we need? Which these are the Ma'amodos. In other words, there is a service which the Kohanim do. They do the Avodah and the Beis HaMikdash. There's the service of the Levim. They do the song, the chanting of the song, etc. Either with the clay shoris, either with the clay, with the kalim, or with the pad, the vocal, or al kol panim. Then you have Yisroel b'ma'amodom. Now, from the Mishnah, it would seem that the source for the Yisroel b'ma'amodam it was instituted by the Nevi'im Harishonim. That's the Lashon HaRambam. Lefichach tiknu Nevi'im Harishonim. Being that every Yid really, because it's a communal sacrifice, and it's not possible, says the Rambam, it's wrong, it's not possible that a person's sacrifice should be offered without him standing in attendance. So therefore, the Nevi'im Harishonim, the early Nevi'im, the first era of Nevi'im, which according to Rashi, Nevi'im Harishonim would mean David HaMelech and Shmuel and David, they instituted these, the Anshe Maimed, the groups of the Maimed. And as the Rambam goes on to tell us, that just like there were, and the Gemara tells us, that there were Mishmaros, Kahuna, and Leviah. There were Chav Daled Mishmaros, there were groups of Koyanim, which there was a rotation of 24 groups of the families of the Koyanim, which they used to do the Avodah throughout the year in the Beis HaMikdash. There was a Chav Daled Mishmaros, 24 rotations of Levim, groups of families of Levim, which did the Avodah, their service of the Shira in the Beis HaMikdash. To correspond with that, there were Chav Daled, there were 24 groups of Yisroelim to correspond to the Israelites, to the Yisroel, to the Am Yisroel, who should be Oimed ala Korban. Now, from the Mishnah, it would seem that the Nevi'im Harishonim established it. Now, the question is that a fact? The interesting thing is that the Mishnah, which we just quoted, quotes a pasuk. Let's listen to the pasuk. The Mishnah introduces a pasuk in Masechta Taanis. It says, Elohim ha'amodos. Because the Torah says you have to bring a korbanis for me, so the Mishnah says, how is it possible that one should bring a korban and he's not standing by the korban when it's brought as the sacrifice? So therefore the Nevi'im Harishonim instituted the 24 rosters of Israelites. You just realize that it says in Talmud Bavli, it says in Talmud Yerushalmi, that the groups of Yisraelim, there were 24,000 Yisraelim, 24,000 of Israelites who joined the group in Yerushalayim, and then there were 12,000 who joined the group in Yericho. Just realize, so we're not talking about Epes Apar Minyonim, talking about in the thousands. Okay, that's number one. There is a machlokes seemingly. Some Mefarshim want to learn and take Rashi verbatim, according to Rashi, based on the Lashon HaMishnah. It would seem that the groups of the Ma'amodos, where the Bnei Yisroel stood, it was a group. They were grouped as Koyanim, Levim, and Yisraelim. They grouped together. It wasn't those who stood as emissaries of the Jewish people. It wasn't just Yisraelim. There were Koyanim, Levim, and the Yisraelim. So it seems from the Lashon of the Mishnah and also from the Lashon of Rashi. But from the Lashon HaRambam, it would seem that they were dafka purely Yisraelim. They were not Koyanim and Levim. And if you take out a Gvura Sari and Masechta Taanis, it would seem he wants to learn the Gemara that way too. And when the Gemara and Rashi seems to want to say Koyanim, Levim, Yisraelim, it's talking about the Koyanim for their avodah in the Korbanos, and Levim for their avodah in the Shira, and the Yisraelim for them to stand by when the korban was brought. But the groups of Ma'amodos weren't made up of Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim. They were purely from Yisraelim, but like I said, that's a separate discussion. So even though the Mishnah seems to say that the Nevi'im Harishonim instituted this, and I mentioned to you that Rashi interprets that Nevi'im Harishonim means David or Shmuel, and you have to realize, and the Gemara says so mefurish in Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph and Masechta Taanis, that the Nevi'im Harishonim are David and Shmuel. But others seem to query and question this based on the Lashon of the Tosefta, because the Tosefta talks about the Mishmoros, the rosters of the Kohanim and the Levim. And there, it's very clearly recorded in Divrei Hayomim, who the rosters that Moshe Rabbeinu was the first one to institute rosters, right? Groups of Kohanim and groups of Levim, and then came Shmuel and David and added on the number of what Moshe Rabbeinu instituted. So that goes back very clearly, as recorded in Divrei Hayomim, to David and Shmuel. But that's the Lashon of the Tosefta. Then the Tosefta continues on, and then he talks about the Ma'amodos, the Yisraelim, those who have to stand by when the korban is brought, and has to stand beside when the Kohen does the avodah of the korban tamid. And he says there, Amdu Neviim Shebe Yerushalayim, Psam Modna Losh and Stam Neviim. So the Chazdei David, Rab David Pardo, in his commentary, Chazdei David on the Tosefta claims that it would seem from the language of the Tosefta and the sequence of the Tosefta that the groups, that Neviim instituted, the groups of those Yisroelim were not the same. Not Shmuel and David, it only came about much later. And he says, even according to the text of the Mishnah, which reads Nevi'im Arishonim, it doesn't dafka after me Shmuel and David. So therefore, even in the Rambam where it says Nevi'im Arishonim, it's lav dafka Shmuel and David. And he brings and proves that we can find the lashon of Nevi'im Arishonim, which doesn't have to refer dafka to Shmuel and David. It can be the later day Nevi'im, even though we call them Nevi'im Arishonim. Take a look at the Chazdei David, the Masechta Tainis Perek Gimel. He nevertheless concludes that yes, we can say that it was also Shmuel and David, but Shmuel and David just instituted the concept of the Ma'amodos. But who actually set it out in detail? It was the later Nevi'im. So like I say, that's a separate issue. And also if you have a Tosefta Kipshuta, or you want to look into the Tosefta Kipshuta from Professor Rab Shaul Lieberman in his commentary, he also deals with the texts of the Tosefta in the Nevi'im Stam or the Nevi'im Shebe Yerushalayim, and there are different girsais and different texts of the variations of texts of the Tosefta. Okay, but that's one inyan. The question is as follows. The Rambam doesn't quote the Pasuk, which the Mishnah quotes, Tzavez b'nei Yisroel v'amarta aleim es korboni lachmi. He only quotes this svara. He quotes v'chi hech korboni shalodem korev hu eina omed al gabov. So it would seem from the Lashon Rambam that it's not possible that a person, it cannot be possible that a person sacrifices offered and he's not present. That's what the Rambam seems to say. And that is the basis to have the Israelites present when the korban is brought on their behalf. But there's no pasuk, and then he goes on to say that the Nevi'im Arishonim instituted that. So the question is, when did it come about? Did it only come about in the days of Shmuel and David, or was it possibly earlier? And from the pasuk that is quoted in the Mishnah, there may not be any proof. He's just bringing the general introduction about the korbanos. What is interesting is as follows: it's a mefurishis sifri in Parshas Pinchas on the pasuk. If you take out the Parshas Pinchas, everybody has a chumash, and you'll take out your Parshas Pinchas. So that's the Parshas Atomid, which we say daily. So we say Tishmeru lahakriv li b'moyadoi, correct? We say it daily in the Parsha. So in the Parshas Pinchas, it says as follows. Pinchas, yeah? In the Parshas Hatomid, it says, Tzavez b'nei Yisroel v'amarta aleim es korboni lachmi leishai, reach nichechi tishmeru lahakriv li b'moyadoi. Says the Sifri on the spot that what does the Lashon Tishmeru mean? That you should watch, you should wait or stand. Sheyu Koyanim says, and Rashi records that on the Chumash. Sheyu Koyanim Levim Yisraelim Oimdin Al Gabov, that these Koyanim and Levim Yisraelim should be Oimed Al Gabov, or should be standing beside the Koyan when he does the service of this Korban Tamid. Nikan Lamdu V'tiknu Ma'amodes. From here is derived, and they instituted Ma'amodes. So Rashi brings a pasuk in the Chumash in Parshas Pinchas, and that's taking us back to the desert time, to Parshas Pinchas, correct? So there's, according to Rashi, Tishma, the question is, did they follow it at the time, or is it just an asmachta? Actually, in the Sefer Toldos Adam, in the commentary on the Sifri Toldos Adam, he wants to claim that because Rashi continues on to say, and the Mishnah says that the Nevi'im are Rishonim were masakin the Ma'amodos, so you must say that the pasuk Tishmeru is merely an asmachta. It's merely a pasuk which we're leaning on, but it's not actually the source. That's his take. But others, Dafka, learned the total opposite, and most of the Mefarshim learned the total opposite. That the Sifri means Kipshutoi, that the inyan of, that we need to have the Yidden standing beside the Kohen who's doing the service, and the Hakrova of the Korban is actually derived from Tishmeru, and from there we know it. The question is, did it exist at the time? So if you'll take out Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, it seems quite clear that he learns from this Rashi as follows. The Rashi says Vibal, the Sifri says Tishmeru means that you have to have Ma'amodos. So therefore, in principle, there was already, and there has to be a Ma'amad. Question is, in what style, in what form, in what fashion do the Ma'amodos have to be? But the principle concept and principle is there from the pasuk Tishmeru, and that's a din Torah. That's min ha-Torah, according to the Rabbi Yoel Mizrahi in the Sifri and in the Spirish Rashi. It's just that because the Nevi'im and the later sages saw that there's such a chiyuv, so then they organized it, and they, so to speak, they designed it in such a way that it should be, like the Mishnah says, Chav Dalid Mamodos, 24 Mamodos, and it has to be dafka in such a mode and in such a style. So also in the Sefer Chikri Lev, Migdali Asfardim, in the Sefer Chikri Lev, I think it's Simel Lamed Hey, he too also learned that it's Kipshuta, we know it from the Pasuk Tishmeru, and, excuse me, and even though the Mishnah says, Tiknu, it means Darshu V'Hiskinu. It means to say that they expounded this, they elaborated on this takana, on this din, but it's a din Torah. And B'meila, therefore, he wants to say that even though the Rambam doesn't quote any psukim, but Vibal the Rambam says, V'i efsher sheyu Yisroel kulam v'i efsher sheyu korbonish alodim korev hu and ha'emet al gabov. In other words, that's a given. That says that it's impossible for a korban to be brought, and the person who offers the korban shouldn't be standing beside the kohen who's bringing it. So that tells us that's a basic ABC in korbanos. So b'meila, therefore, even though the Rambam goes on to say that the Nevi'im are Rishonim were masakin, they only were masakin the Chav Daled Ma'amodos in the form and fashion. But this, that there has to be Ma'amodos, that's already based on the Yesodistic principle of that V'ef Shashir Karbonish Alim Korev Hu Ein Ha'emet Al Gabov. Now, does the Rambam mean to allude to any pasuk? He doesn't quote a pasuk, and it's not surprising a bit that he doesn't quote a pasuk, even though it's a mefurish Sifri. But I'll call upon him, Rabbi Yosef Engel, it brings to our, so the Meforshim al Asar, even though the Mishnah Mefurish doesn't bring the pasuk Tishmeru, nevertheless the Marsha on the pasuk where the Mishnah quotes the pasuk, the beginning of the parsha, and that is the pasuk of Savas b'nei Yisroel v'amarta aleim es korboni lachmi li'ishai, and the sequence is says the Marsha, even though the Mishnah doesn't quote the whole pasuk Tishmeru, but the Matorah, the Kavana of the Mishnah is the Soif pasuk, the end of the pasuk, the Tishmeru, even though it only quotes the beginning of the pasuk. And there's no Vigoimer in the Mishnah, it doesn't say etc. So nevertheless, as the Marsha in Chidushei Agolis, that it's referring to the sequence of the pasuk. Valderazeh, the Tosfos Yom Tov in the Mishnah says the Kavanah of the Mishnah is referring to the sequence of the Mishnah, the end of the Mishnah, the end of the pasuk, which says Tishmeru. Interesting, in the Sefer Alei Tomar from Rabbi Socha Tomar, who was from Tel Aviv, a Rav in Tel Aviv, in Eretz Yisrael, wrote Rogatchover Chiburim on Talmud Yerushalmi. He says that you take a look at the Rashi, was brought to his attention that Rashi on that Mishnah, in Masechta Tainis, Daf Chav Vav and Daf Chav Zayin, Daf Chav Vav, so Rashi quotes the pasuk, and he says, Savetz b'nei Yisroel, v'amarta aleim es korboni lachmi le'ishai v'goimer. Rashi adds a v'goimer. That's a very serious Rashi. So he says, Rashi wants to convey to us, yes, that the Iker Limud is taka from the Tishmer, even though it's questionable if Rashi in Masechta Tainis is from Rashi or not, but that's a separate issue. But B'chol Oifen, there's a V'goimer in that Rashi, which again is alluding to the Tishmeru. And Rabbi Yosef Engel then brings Mefurish Rashis throughout the Shas. Rabbi Yosef Engel in Masechta Tainis Daf Chav Zayin, so there's not my Pekiyis, it's Rabbi Yosef Engel's Pekiyis, who knows Kol HaTorah Kula. So he goes on to bring, he says that definitely the mocker is the Tishmeru, even though it doesn't say it in the Mishnah. Tishmeru would mean that you should, so some say Tishmeru means you should watch over the korban. Watch over the korban means you got to be there. Or Tishmeru would mean you should wait. The Aviv Shomar Asadavar, you should wait beside the korban. So from there we know the Din Maimed. And it goes on to bring a Rashi in Masechta Yuma Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, and a Rashi in Megillah Daf Gimel Amud Aleph, and a Rashi in Zvachim Daf Yotes Amud Aleph, and a Rashi in Yuma Daf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, which in all these Rashis, Rashi clearly, explicitly, and I think I mentioned Saita also, Daf Ches Amud Aleph, where Rashi explicitly mentions the pasuk Tishmeru, that we know it from there, and he also records the Sifri, that the Sifri learns it and derives it from the Tishmeru. So even though the Maratz Chai is in Masechta Megillah Daf Gimel where Rashi quotes in Masechta Megillah that we know it from the Tishmeru, and he says Sorechi in Godel that Rashi says you know it from Tishmeru with the pasuk. The Mishnah doesn't quote the pasuk Tishmeru. Nevertheless, already this Dei Chemed in his Pirush Michtav L'Chiskiyo or Masechta Megillah Daf Gimel, the Aderes in the Sefer Cheshbon Shel Mitzvah, if I recall correctly, already tell us that yes, that Rashi is referring, that the Rashi is taking it from the Sifri, and the Mishnah means the V'goymer, the sequence of the Pasuk, etc., the sequence of the Mishnah. So according to that, like we say, the mocker of the din of Ma'amodos was already found in the Chumash's Parsha, in Parshas Pinchas. So let me bring to your attention, if you have a Chumash in front of you, there are additional psukim where Mefarshim bring to our attention where we know the dinim of Ma'amodos, and you'll soon appreciate why I'm bringing all this to your attention. Let's go on. In Parshas Behaalosecha, those who read Parshas Behaalosecha already, or those who will read Parshas Behaalosecha, in Kapitel Ches Pasuk Yud, so there it says, V'hikrafta salavim lefnei oil moyed, v'hikalta es kol adas b'nei Yisroel. So take a look at the Rashi. Rashi says in Pasuk Tes, Lefisha haLevim nesunim korban kaporat achteim. Ibal the Levim take the place of the B'chorim, is the Am Yisroel. Yavoyu v'yamdu al korbanom. The Yidden should come and stand over the korban. In other words, that's why Kodesh Baruch Hu says v'hikalta. When you're bringing the Levim into the oil moyed, the Klal Yisroel should be there and stand beside them because they have to be oimed al korbanon. And what is the korbanon? It's the Levim, which the Levim, or so to speak, are the atonement of the Am Yisroel. So the Levim replace the Am Yisroel, they're the korban kapara of the Am Yisroel, and the Baal the Am Yisroel, when they bring a korban, they have to stand beside the korban. That's why Hashem says, you should what? V'hikalta es kol adas b'nei Yisroel. That's another place where we know the din of Ma'amodos, Rashi and Mefurish Rashi. And interesting, let me bring to your attention that the Psikta Zutrase does that identical thing. The Psikta Zutrase on that pasuk says mamish that thing. Where is the Psikta Zutrase? It says in that pasuk, where is that? Yeah, v'hikraftes haLevim. Listen to a Psikta. Now you have to realize the reason why all these Rishonim and Mefarshim are bringing different psukim is because Taka in the Mishnah it's not Mefurish. The Mishnah just seemed to say that it's a given, it's Pashatik, you have to stand beside it. But there's no Mefurish a pasuk. Some say it's Merumiz, it's in the V'goymer, it's the Tishmeru. It's not really there. There's no pasuk the Rambam quotes. So that's where they're all bringing different psukim. So you have a Psikta Zutrasa on the pasuk in the Ches, the pasuk we just quoted. In Behaalosecha it says Mikan Omru v'hikraftes haLevim. Says the Psikta Zutrasa Mefurish. Mikan Omru tzorich adam she'oimed al karbonoi lefichach tiknu ha'ma'amodos. So again, the Psikta says Mefurish. You know it from there. You don't know it from Tishmeru in Parshas Pinchas. You know it from Parshas Behaalosecha. Let me share with you that you see that's Al Kolponim. That's the take of these Mefarshim where you would know the takana of Ma'amodos even before the Takanas Hanevim or Rishonim. Then there is an interesting, this is gar interesting. In Parshas Bolak, we're going to come to Parshas Bolak. In the Parshas Bolak, you know what it says in Parshas Bolak? Take a look in Parshas Bolak, where it says in Parshas Bolak as follows. What does Bilam say to Bolak? You know what Bilam says to Bolak? You know what it says. It says as follows. Let me read for you the pasuk in Parshas Bolak, Kapitel Chav Gimel, pasuk Tezvav. It says, "Vayomer al Bolak, hisyatsev koya aloylosecha." So he says, he tells him to bring karbonis. Bilam sells to Bolak, bring karbonis, and he says, so guess what? So the Melecha Shloima in Masechta Tainis brings from a Pirush Rashi Tinyana that he says, from here we know that this inyan of Ma'amodos was kept. In general, it was a universal thing that when one brought a carbon, you stood beside the carbon because you don't bring a carbon for someone as an atonement or whatever, and you don't stand beside it. So we find it even by Bolak. Now there's a very interesting one, and that is found after, you know where, I've seen it in the Gvuras Hashem for the Maralmi Prog, and that is in the Bris Ben Absorim. That's really taking us all the way back to Avram Avinu, and there where HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him you should cut up the egla and the A's, you should take goats and rams and so on, and you should cut them up. And he does so, Avraham Avinu does so, and then it says that Vayered ha'ayit al abgorim, the bird of prey descends over these pieces of meat. And it says Avraham makes sure and drives away the ayit from these pgorim. You know what the Maralmi Prok says? Why is Avraham standing there and he chases away the ayit from the pgorim? He says, Mizel landush et shrichen Yisroel lasis ma'amodos likorbonos. Ibald Avraham Avinu is standing beside and he's watching over them to the point that anything which comes and interferes, he shoves away. From here we know the din of ma'amodos, Valderov Zen, Shailas et Shuvas Shem Mishimen from Shimon Polak from Hungary, who was a big Mekubal and a big halachist, and Shailas et Shuvas Shem Mishimen and Chelik Aleph and Chelik Beis. I believe he also wants to say, where it said that Avraham Avinu and the Malachim v'ho'emed aleim tachas eitz v'yechelo. I didn't get a chance to go through it, but there I think too, he says that there is another remez for the inyan of ma'amodos. What do I want to say? What is the function of the ma'amodos? So we know already, and I brought to your attention, that ma'amodos existed from day one. And as, there's another shtickle Rabbi Yosef Engel in Galiani Hashas, where Rabbi Yosef Engel says that even though we seem to learn it out from Sukkim after Matan Torah, nevertheless there's room to argue based on a Rashi in Mesechtes Zvachim Daf Kuf Tezvav. There's room to argue that the inyan of Ma'amodos, we brought the other Psukim, but he himself says, based on the Shas, it may even be there's a Rashi in Mesechtes Zvachim Daf Kuf Tezvav, where it comes from that Rashi that there were Ma'amodos right before Mahar Sinai, even before the oil moed, even before the Mishkan. There's a concept of Ma'amodos. So Ma'amodos takes us back a long way. There are Ma'amodos. What is the function of the Ma'amodos? And we said they were grouped in two. There was a group of Bnei Yisroel, either Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim, according to those who learn in Rashi that way. Or there was a group of Yisraelim, like the way the Rambam learns, right? There were thousands of them. And they stood beside the Korban. So so that was one group. Then there was a group, there were Chov Dalid Ma'amodos, 24 Ma'amodos. So there was a group who couldn't make it to Yerushalayim. So those who live close by to Yerushalayim, and those who live in Yerushalayim, depending on the different ways of learning, different meforshim, so they all, the ones in Yerushalayim are close by to Yerushalayim, make sure to be in the Beis HaMikdash, to be able to stand beside the Korbanos. Then there were groups in other cities of Eretz Yisrael who were far away from Yerushalayim. So they too were part of these Ma'amodos. They were Anshe Maimed. They were part of these groups of the 24. And this Anshe Maimed didn't, even though they didn't arrive in Yerushalayim, they had special rules and regulations which they had to keep through the week when it came to their week, to their roster, that they belonged to that specific roster of that week. So they had to do special inyonim. In other words, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, there were special halachos which related to them. They had to enter the shuls, and there were special tefillas. They had to daven, and they had to special say tachanunim, and they had to fast, and there was special kriyas HaTorah, and there was special musafin, special additional tefillas according to the Rambam, which they had to keep. And also there were also b'mlocha. Listen to what's going on here. It says in Talmud Yerushalmi in Masechet Pesachim Daf Perik Dalet, and also in Talmud Yerushalmi in Tainus Perik Dalet, that all those who bring karborot and toisvis in Masechet Pesachim Daf Nunam Medalef, according to Talmud Yerushalmi, it's an Isur D'Oraisa to work on a day when a korban is brought. So according to that, all those who joined the Ma'amodos, according to the way it's presented in the Shas and the way the Rambam presents it, that these Ma'amodos, the Klal Yisrael didn't participate. Now, even though this was a communal sacrifice, so every single Yid should have been in the Beis HaMikdash to stand beside the Korban, the Kohen who brings the Korban on their behalf. Nevertheless, this is impossible, it's an impossibility. Therefore, there was chosen groups of Yidden who, like according to the Rambam, they had to be Ksherim v'yirei chet. There had to be special kosher, God-fearing people, special individuals. Now, where the Rambam takes this ksherim v'yirechet is a big shakla v'tarya. It's interesting that Weizen Arav in his Pirush Maisa Lamelech, and the Rambam brings an interesting mocker for it from the Sifrei Zuta. We can't talk in the details now. The Rebbe appreciated the Sefer Maisa Lamelech, the Weizen Arav. That's where he brings a mocker for the ksherim v'yirechet. There's also a mocker in the Talmud Yerushalmi in Masechet Pesachim Perik Dalet Halacha Aleph, where which seems to be a lashon of the Yerushalmi, which some want to say that's where the Rambam has taken his mocker. Others want to say interesting. Kopach and his Rabbi Yosef Kopach and his thing. He says it's the Rambam's choice of description. It is his choice, but like I say, it's not his choice. It's not just his choice. It has a mocker in Midrashim that has to be dafke ksherim v'yerechet. So it's specialized, unique individuals, even grouped to be in Yerushalayim to stand beside the korban, and then there was special. The same group were grouped. There were groups throughout Eretz Yisrael which they came to their rasta. They had to have their mission, fulfill their mission in the shuls, as the Mishnah says. Now we read for you a Rashi. The Rashi, a couple of Rashis in Masechta Tainis. Let me get my Gemara in Masechta Tainis to share with you, excuse me, the Lashon Rashi. In Masechta Tainis, where's the Lashon Rashi? Give me a second, I'll get a Masechta Tainis. Ein minute, Masechta Tainis. Yeah, Masechta Tainis, and that Tez Zayin Omid Beis, Tez Vav Omid Beis in Masechta Tainis. Let me read for you a Lashon Rashi. So Tez Zayin Omid Beis, listen to what Rashi says. Lashon Rashi, listen to Lashon Rashi. Tez Zayin Omid Beis. Says Rashi. I said Tez Zayin Omid Beis. No, it's Tez Vav Omid Beis. Excuse me. Tez Vav Omid Beis, says Rashi, as follows. Anshe Maimed, listen carefully. Echad koyanim u'levim v'Yisraelim ha'kvuim v'oimdim u'mispalelim. They were kavua, they were fixed, and they were oimed u'mispalel al korban achayim. They stood and they davened for the korban of their brethren. What were they davening for? Sheikabei lerotzoin, that the korban should be accepted with goodwill by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'oimdim l'sham b'shas havoida, and they stand there in the time of the service of the kohen. And like Rashi says, like we know what the Mishnah says, how is it possible that a korban of a person should be niskare? And it's all explained in Masechta Tainis. And Rashi further in Masechta Tainis, Daf Chof Zayin Omud Aleph, Rashi explains more or less the same thing, says Rashi. The Lashon Rashi is, im ein Ma'amad mikulam Yerushalayim kedan al kol mishmar hay Ma'amad b'Yerushalayim shel kohenim levim v'Yisraelim, and they are all Baalim because they have to be they're like all regarded as the owners of the korban, and they're all standing beside the thing b'shas ha'avoda. Let me also read for you and share with you a Lashon HaRambam and Pirush HaMishnayos. And this Lashon of Rambam and Pirush HaMishnayos is novel, and that is, let me have a Pirush HaMishnayos. Vuda Pirush HaMishnayos, right here. Listen to the Lashon of Pirush HaMishnayos. The Rambam tells us in Perik Dalid, Mishnah Beis, as follows. Says the Rambam. Listen to what the Rambam says. Maimed, Anshe Maimed, Em Shluchi Yisroel, Kulam, the Kavanosam, listen carefully, Kavanosam Vedatam Nisuna. Their intent and their minds are set aside, Leis Askus Ba'avoido Tvila, to be involved in the service and in the prayer. Ve'enyam Asukim Be'iske Atzmam. They're not involved in their personal endeavors. Virhuram umachshaftam yiyu bikorbanos, and all their thoughts and all their mind should be in the korbanos. You hear what's going on? And he goes on. When the time of the Maimed arrived, so every one of the Anshe Oisei Maimed, those who were close to Yerushalayim, went to Yerushalayim, and they found themselves in the Beis Hamikdash, which as they brought the korbanos. And then you had those who were far away from Yerushalayim. They were in the shuls. Says the Rambam, u'mispalelin, v'koirin, they medavin, and they read the Kriyas HaTorah, u'misaskin ba'avoida, they're involved in the avoida call, oisei hashavua, the whole week, shehuzman mishmartam, which is the time of their rasta. B'tfila, they're involved in prayer, u'kriya, and reading the Sefer Torah, b'tainis, and in fasting, as detailed in the Mishnah and in the Gemara. What do we see? The Anshe Maimed are not just standing beside the Kohen, and just b'mezoktis, not paying attention to what's going on. Those who are standing beside the Kohen are focused, and their whole focus is about the davening, number one, that it should be Ritzei Hashem. Like we say, we say Ritzei, that after we say the tefillas, we say Ritzei. Hashem Elokeinu, that our tefillah should be niskabel. So here too, that what the Korban master attain should be niskabel by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's what they're doing. They're praying, and they're also, besides that they're praying, their whole focus, according to Rashi and the Rambam, is all about the avodah and the service. And then doing this on behalf of Klal Yisroel. And this is not those who are standing in Yerushalayim in the Beis Hamikdash. It's also those who was in all the Bate Knesset throughout Eretz Yisrael. They also have this whole Seder Avodah, this whole system as described in detail in the Mishnah and in the Gemara. So they're not just standing idle and standing around and waiting till the Avodah is over. They're very involved, heavily involved in the Avodah of the Beis Hamikdash. Okay. So that's what the Rashi and the Rambam teach us and tell us about the focus of the Anshe Maimed. Now, what about it? So what are we leading to and where are we heading? Let me just continue on telling you a little more to appreciate what the Rogatchover wants to convey to us. And that is as follows. The fact is that the gather of the Ma'amodos, if you take out a Gemara in Masechta Megillah, the Gemara says, Koyanim ba'avidosam, Masechta Megillah Daf Gimel Amud Aleph, Koyanim ba'avidosam leviim b'dechonam v'Yisroel b'ma'amodam, kulam b'vatlim ba'avidosam u'boyin l'shmoya mikra Megillah. You hear what's going on? Listen to the lashon of the Gemara. The Gemara says they're all mevatl from their avodah, and they come to hear the mikra Megillah. And the Gemara goes on to say that from there we derive that you mevatl Talmud Torah, just like you mevatl from the avodah. The Gemara has the arichas over there, the sequence of the sugya Masechta Megillah. But the lashon Gemara is that kohenim in their service, Leviim in their shira, and Yisroel b'ma'amodam, they're all mevatl me avodason. In other words, it's not just an avodah of the kohen when he's actually doing the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash of slaughtering and doing the avodah of the zrikas hadam and all the other avodas of the korban. While there is a Levi with the shira, the Yisroel b'ma'amodam, he's not just standing there idly. We just explained from Rashi and the Rambam, as it's quite obvious from this Gemara too, that they have to be mevatel me'avodosam. It's begeder avodah. When the Yisroel is b'ma'amodam, it's begeder avodah, and we call it mevatel me'avodosam. Then mevatel from the avodah. That's one lashon of the Gemara, which seems to highlight that the maimed is also begeder avodah. Seems to fall into the context of avodah. Just by the way, even though we keep on saying the lashon ma'amad, which seems to say that they're standing there, but we said ma'amad could mean. And actually, Rabbi Reuven Margolis in his commentary in Nefesh Chaya and Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, he says it doesn't mean dafka that they have to stand. It's possible that they can even sit when they're doing it. Just being there present when the korban is being brought, they can actually sit, even though we call them ma'amad. But ma'amad, we said, is a certain position. It doesn't mean to say they have to be actually standing miloshen amida. Now, even though the fact is that those who are entering and being a part of the Maimed, when they enter the Beis Hamikdash and they represent their emissaries of Klal Yisroel, where are they standing? The Rambam says, Mefurish, Yisroel kulam oimdim ba'azora. It seems that the Anshe Maimed were in the Azor, in the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash. And so Rashi, we mentioned the many different Rashis before, so Rashi also mentions of a couple of those places. Rashi says clearly that they were in the Azor. Now there is it says also in Tosfos Read that they were in the Azor, and therefore I don't appreciate and I don't understand what the Aruch HaShulchan HaOsit says, that when the Rambam says when they go in, when they find themselves in Yerushalayim, they go into the Mikdash, he says, you know what? He means to the Harabayis, the Anshe Maimed go to the Harabayis. He says, why? Pshita sheba Azora ya also lehem likonis. Surely the Anshe Maimed can go into the Azora. She'enim b'nei avodah. They're not doing the avodah. Ela b'nei tefillah. They're only meaning mispalel. They can't go into the Azora. And he says, this is what the Rambam says, they go into the Beis Hamikdash. It's not found anywhere. The Rambam only says it mitzad svora, because they should be as close as possible to the what? To the one who's doing the korban. I just want to say, and he says also the Mikdash is a place where the tefillah is more accepted by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I don't know exactly what the Aruch HaShulchan wants to convey. It's mefurish quite clear in the Rambam, the Lashon Hazorah, in Rashi, in many places, Lashon Hazorah. he sees it's a commentary on the Rambam. Nevertheless, in Hilchos Klei HaMikdash Simcha Chavav, he says when the Rambam says Mikdash, it means Azorah. The only shot I can find for this Aruch HaShulchan HaOsid is to explain and say that maybe he means before they're actually doing the Avodah. So they gather. They don't gather in the Mikdash. They only gather in the Harabais. I don't know otherwise what he wants to say. So it's a mitzvah l'yashiv and lav dafka mitzvah. It's okay. It's not the first Aruch HaShulchan, which is Tzorech Hir, and it's okay. Let's move on. We're moving on. Then the Gemara in Masechta Megillah Daf Gimel goes on to say another thing. The Gemara says that when Yehoshua was in Yericho, right, in the beginning of Sefer Yehoshua, so it says that the Malach meets up with him in the evening, and he says to him, he reveals himself to Yehoshua, and Yehoshua wonders what's he doing there. Who is this? And Yehoshua, he introduces himself as a Malach, and he says to Yehoshua, Emesh bitaltem Tomei Shel Bein Harabayim. Yesterday you mevatel the Tomei Shel Bein Harabayim, and now you mevatel Talmud Torah. That's the lotion of what the Malach says to Yehoshua. What's the meaning that he said to him yesterday? You mevatel from bringing the Tomei Shel Bein Harabayim. So there's a machlokes rishonim what it means that they were mevatel from the Tomei Shel Bein Harabayim. So some rishonim want to learn bitaltem Tomei Shel Bein Harabayim in conclusion. It says in Rashba. And it says in Tosfos on the spot in Masechta Megillah Daf Gimel that what is Emesh bitaltem Tomei Shel Bein Harabayim, that vibald the oren wasn't bimkoimoi, so therefore they weren't able to bring a korban tomid, so therefore they were mevatel from bringing the korban tomid. So it means kipshutoi that they were mevatel from bringing the korban tomid. But there's another pirush in Tosfos. In the way the Tosfos, there's a text of the Tosfos in your Ein Yankiv. I know a lot of Yidden who are big Lomdim mit Talmidei Chacham passt nicht. Haben man Ein Yankiv, oder passt sie nicht gucken in Ein Yankiv, it man anschuldigen. You should look in Ein Yankiv, not just for the Agodas HaShas, but Poshet for the Girsis and Rashi and in Tosfos is dafka found in the text of the Ein Yankiv. So here you find a novel Tosfos in the text of the Tosfos in the Ein Yankiv dafka in Masechta Megillah, which is not now a Tosfos, and all the Rishonim, all the Achronim bring dafka the Rashba and the Ritva, but it's not. They don't have it in the Tosfos, but it's in the Ein Yankiv. Tosfos brings in the Ein Yankiv and also the Ritva or the Rashba say as follows. You know what bitaltem Tomei Shel Bein Harabayim means? They will mevatel the Ma'amad. You need Ma'am. This is in Zman Yehoshua, right? Before there's a Beis HaMikdash. So they had to have ma'amodos for the korban tomid. They had to have ma'amodos for the korban tomid, but the Yidden were standing there and waging war. So the Yisroel, the Bnei Yisroel, couldn't be ma'amad ala korban. So they actually brought the korban tomid, but they couldn't have the ma'amad by the korban tomid. And that's the meaning of what the Gemara says. Emesh bitaltem Tomei Shel Bein Harabayim. Yesterday you were mevatel the tomid. Does it mean they were mevatel the tomid? No. It means they were mevatel the maimid, which is part and needed for the korban tomid. Now listen to Tosfos and the Rashba. Tosfos and the Rashba conclude, and they say as follows, that the pshat doesn't sound right, because the ma'amad is not essential to the korban tomid. It's only the mitzvah lechatchila. But with the Yeved, if you bring the korban tomid, the communal offering, and you don't have the ma'amodos, it's okay. It's okay, not a problem. I'll call upon him. So, but you see clearly that if we would learn that the inyan of ma'amad would be li'ikuva, if it would be essential to the korban, then, and we learn the Gemara, Emesh bitaltem Tomei Shel Bein Harabayim, we would call that a beetle of korban tomid. So that conveys to us a fascinating understanding of what ma'amodos are. That where there are no ma'amodos besides the Bnei Yisroel or the Kohen and the Levim standing besides the avodah of the korban, we would regard that as bitaltem korban tomid. You bring the korban tomid bepoil, but vibald, you don't have ma'amodos, it's called bitaltem Tomei Shel Bein Harabayim. If I would learn, that's essential to the korban tomid. And l'maisa bepoil, the Turi Even, the Shagas Ari and Turi Even, in Masechta Megillah on the spot argues with the Rashba, and he says it's incorrect. And Enechanami, it is li'ikuva and it is ma'akev, and he brings the Gemara in Masechta Tainis Daf Chav Zayin, where the Gemara says that the inyan, that the ma'amodos is just like the kohenim on ma'akev. You need to have the avodah, you need the levin, you need the shira, al derech zeh, the ma'amodis, the ma'akev, the korban. It's essential to the korban. Other Rishonim argue, as mentioned, and the Meiri also argues, but he learns kipshutu that it's taka essential to the korban, and it may invalidate the korban if you don't have the ma'amodis. So you see the importance and how it's part and parcel, even though it seems to be merely a hechsher for the korban. Nevertheless, we would call it bitalten tomid shel bein ha'arbayim. Okay. Now listen, let's move on. I want to say as follows. I'm going to just introduce to you another shtickle, Rabbi Yosef Engel and a Sefer Gvura Shmoinim, and also a shtickle of Lahiris Nosson from Rab Nosson Gestetner. And you would be surprised why I'm doing this, but I'm letting you know I'm mainly spoon-feeding you the Rogatchover, because I don't understand this Rogatchover whatsoever without this introduction. So this introduction, because I, Baruch Hashem, studied these in Yonim, okay, b'schus chem, b'schus the Rogatchover, and b'schus of all the participants, and therefore sharing is caring. So that's the only way I understand this Rogatchover. In other words, the Rogatchover doesn't go out of his way to explain the importance and how essential and how primary the ma'amodis are for the korbanos. But what we have done till now, and to wrap it up in a short synopsis, we've shown that the Indian is sourced and based on psukim in the Torah, like on the Sifri, on the Tishmeru, and other psukim in the Torah, and it's going back even to the days of throughout the ages. There was the Ma'amodos, and like the Lashon Rambam, and like the Lechem, the Chikrei Lev says in Lashon Rambam, the Rambam also holds that it's lehikuva, that it's essential, even though he doesn't write it explicitly. From this that the Rambam writes, says the Chikrei Lev, that's what the Rambam means. It's not shaykh to bring a korban without the ma'amodos. The Mele, it's understood that if there's no ma'amodos, it's a chesron in the korban tamid. Says the Chikrei Lev in Lashon Rambam, even though he didn't quote verbatim the language of the text of the Gemara from Masechta Tainis Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. Okay, we're moving on. Then we also see from all the different Lashonis of the Gemara how we see that it's actually part and parcel of the korban, as mentioned before, the different Gemara, the two Gemaras in Masechta Megillah. Let me now share with you also a yesod and a principle of Rabbi Yosef Engel. Rabbi Yosef Engel authored a sefer, many svarim. One of his svarim is called Gvura Shmoinim. What's Gvura Shmoinim? When the Gvura is Shmoinim Shana, right? So Allah sollen haben Marichas Yomim v'Shanim Tovos. Jemand darf sagen L'chaim auf dem. Amen, L'chaim. So listen carefully. He has a kasha, and that's a Welts kasha. A kusha is a olam, a Welts kasha, was alle fragen die kasha. And based on this kasha, he has 80 tirutzim for this kasha. 80 tirutzim. And this is basically a whole sefer he wrote, he penned, to reconcile this question, which is like an obvious question in your face. And he says 80 tirutzim, they seem to be separate tirutzim, but really it's like one long pilpul. And you have to understand, Rabbi Yosef Engel, who passed away in 1920 from Bendin, he originated from Torah, but then he was in Bendin, he's together with Rameir Adik from the Ala Gedolei Yisroel, Bismanoi, it said Rameir Don Plotsky, etc. All of them, all the Gedolei Yisroel from Poil, in Galicia in those days. So one of the greatest Gedolei Yisroel of the time. And we to learn his svarim, and he was very much like the Rogatchover Gaon in his kiyas and in his amkos and in his dissecting issues, etc., and principles and yesodis. And Gdorim, for those who are acquainted, and we're moving on, I'll call upon him. So the Sefer Gvura Shmoinim, he asks us a kasha. What's the kasha? The Gemara says in Chulun Daf Lamed Ches. And the Gemara says in Zvochim Daf Mem Vav and Daf Mem Zayin. So there's a man, the Omer, who holds, that's Rabbi Loza bar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Loza bar Rabbi Yosef, the Mishnah says, listen what the Mishnah says. A very interesting thing that we say that the machshove goes bosser ha'oived. That's a claim in the Mishnah. The Rambam paskins that way in Hilchos Psulei HaMikdashim. There's a din of pigul. In other words, when the kohen does the avodah, so he has to have, says the Mishnah, l'shem shisha devarim hazevach nizbach. You have to bring the korban with 6 positive intents in his mind. He has to have 6 kavanis in his mind. And then the Mishnah continues that Lav Dafki should have these kavanis. It's a Tanai Bezdin, even if he does it without specific kavanis, if he's not mechavan anything, and a Dafka shouldn't be mechavan anything, he should just bring it without any kavanis. Either way, nevertheless, the korban is kosher. And the Mishnah concludes that the machshava goes bosar ha'oived. What does it mean, machshava basar ha'oived? There's a din of machsheves pigul. Machshavas pigul. In other words, if when he does the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, the korban, the kohen, and he has in mind to eat it chutz lizmanoi, or to be zerdik chutz lizmanoi, chutz l'mkoimoi, right, to do it not the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded, and that's what he has, b'dibur. He says, b'dibur b'machshava, it's called a machshavas psul, a machshavas piul, and we say it goes basar ha'oived. What does it mean, basar ha'oived? So it means for the one who was involved in the korban. The Balder Kohen is doing, says Rashi. In one place he says he's doing the zrikas adam, or he's doing the shchitas hakorban. So if he's doing the slaughtering, or if he's doing the sprinkling of the blood, so he is the oived, he's the one who's actually involved in doing the act of the korban. So therefore the machshavas psul, the machshava of pigul, will affect the korban only the one who is oived. Okay, that's the sheet of Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi. Comes again, that's the sheet of the Tanakama. Comes again the Gemara and he says, Shamaiti, I heard my Rabbi say, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi, I think he's the Mandamar, I heard my Rabbi say that the Habalim Mefaglim, Balim, the owners of the korban, if they also have a machshavas psul, if they also think something negative, if they have a machshavas pigul to do something chutz lizmanoi, that would also invalidate the korban. Asks Rabbi Yosef Engel, according to this Manda Omar, if a machshavas of the Bailim can also invalidate the korban. Shamaiti, me Rabbi say that Bailim mefaglim, that even the owner of the korban could invalidate a korban with his intent, which is negative, which is wrong. If that's the case, how can the Gemara say in Masechta Soita that the woman who was found to be promiscuous, she has to bring a korban mincha, her husband brings on her behalf a korban mincha, and she's the bailim and he's the bailim of the korban, and the korban will prove for us after that's mevarer if she sinned or not, and we give her the mayim and ma'orim, like the whole service as we just learned in Parshas Nasai. We do the whole procedure in Parshas Nasai, and that will tell us if she's what, if she's called tamei or tamei or something. But it only works if the mincha is tar, if it's a kosher korban. If the kosher korban, that will prove that if she taka did the wrong thing and she's found to be promiscuous, so then in a chanami she's gonna what? She'll suffer the consequences, like it says in the Chumash. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, how can we have a proof from bringing the Gemara says the korban is it comes to prove her sin? How can it come to prove the sin? Maybe she, b'shas the mincha was brought on her behalf, she was mefagel. She had a machshavas chutz lizmanoi. And according to the Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi, habalim mefaglim, that can invalidate the korban. So maybe that's why it didn't prove that she did the wrong thing, and therefore maybe she's really tamei, and it didn't prove to us that she's tamei because what? She was mefagel the korban. That's the question he asks, and he has 80 answers for that, and many other Gedolei Yisroel also try to reconcile this, the Aderes and the Avnei Nezer and many other greats. Now listen carefully what Rabbi Yosef Engel says in Ois Samach Gimel in the 63rd section of the Sefer, 63rd answer. He asks, what's taka the logic of this mandomer who says abalim befaglim? The rule is that you have to participate in the avodas hakorban. That's the only way your negative intent can invalidate the korban. The baalim, the owners, only bring the korban, but they're not doing the service. So how can there even be an opinion that the baalim who are not doing and not part of the service and not playing any role, how is it possible that they should invalidate the korban? It goes basara oived. How can that be? Guess what? This shaila is actually raised, and this principle is raised, and therefore someone will say, how can we say that it's ma'akev? Okay, here we go. So Rabbi Yosef Engel explains, and this is actually beautifully explained by Rab Nosson Gestetner in his Shailas Achuvas Lahiris Nosson, and thereafter cut and paste published in Lahiris Nosson, Rabbi Nosson Gestetner, Olav Hasholem from Bnei Brak, Yossi Gestetner, the local, his uncle, I believe, his great uncle. Yes, okay, and thanks to him, I have this for him. So therefore, I use it. Baruch Hashem. So the Lahiris Nosson on Chumash and Parshas Pinchas, Valderas did the Lahiris Nosson in Masechta Besachim Daf Nun. He elaborates on it, and if he asks me, even though it doesn't quote any Sforim, my gut feeling is that he saw the Sefer Gur Shmoinim, and he also saw the Sefer Gur Arya Yehuda from the son of Rabbi Nachum Zembe, who speaks also on the same lines in Siman Chav Beis in Kuntras HaMoyadim, where he talks about the Moyadim and he talks about the Ma'amodos. I'll call upon him. Listen to what Rabbi Yosef Engel says and this is as follows. He says, what are we saying? That the one who is involved in the service, it's only what? It's only the Kohen. The fact is that there's a din ma'amodos. That's exactly the din of ma'amodos. And the fact is that ma'amodos is not just standing idly besides the korban. The din of ma'amodos is that he has to focus and be mechaven on the avodas hakorban b'shas the korban is brought. So all of his mind and all of his intent is in the korbanos. Side the one who's standing in the Beis Hamikdash, and side the one who was mispalel out of the Beis Hamikdash. The male comes to choice to the ma'amodos, and then he brings ba'arucha that the ma'amodos are essential to the validity of the korban. So he says, even though it's called it's machshir korban, it, so to speak, it substantiates the korban. It's something, so to speak, secondary to the korban, but it's such a secondary thing to the korban, which is essential to the korban, and therefore it's like part and parcel of the korban. So he says, just like the kohen is doing the main avodah al derech zeh, the one who is performing the ma'amodos is also mamish involved in the kashrus of the korban, and therefore there can be a man the Omar and the Shas who holds that Baalim Mefaglin, even though they seem to be just idly standing beside the kohen, but they're actually very heavily involved in the avodas hakorban, because that's the whole matorah and the teichen of the ma'amodos. Al kol ponim, Val derech zeh, interesting, in the Sefer Gur Aryeh Yehuda, listen to what he wants to say. He has an issue. He says, what does it say in the Gemara that the Yisroel b'ma'amodim have to be mevatel from their avodah to hear the Megillah? Why do they have to be mevatel from their avodah to hear the Megillah? Why can't they just hear the Megillah whilst they're standing in the Beis Hamikdash, and the Kohen is doing the avodas hakorban? So what's the problem? They can hear the Megillah there. Why do they have to be mevatel from their avodah to hear the Megillah? So one of the svaris the son of Rabbi Menachem Zemba raises is as follows. He says, because the Magid Mishnah says a chidush in the din of Kriyas HaMegillah, that even though in the Shas we find an argument if mitzvah strichas kavona, if you need special intent to fulfill the mitzvah or not. So it's a question by all mitzvahs, but he says by Mikra Megillah, when it comes to reading the Megillah, everybody will agree, says the Magid Mishnah, that we have to have kavona to fulfill the mitzvah of Kriyas HaMegillah, because the din of Kriyas HaMegillah is the Hallel, is saying praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so therefore you have to say it with special intent. The Mele, he says as follows. You know why the Yid, the Yisroel b'ma'amodos, have to be mevatel from doing the ma'amad in order to hear the Megillah? Because he has two kavonis, can't be at the same time, like it says in the Ravid in Hilchas Parah Aduma, and the Balatanya also mentions this in Hilchas in Shulchan Aruch Erechaim in the Kudras Achron, and that is, he says it's questionable if he can be mechav two kavonis babasachas. So he says as follows: do it beings. This is a svara which Rabbi Nachman Zemba's son raises in Gur Aryeh Yehuda, being that he has to have kavona for reading the Megillah, and being that he's standing besides the korban, and he has to be mechav for the avodas hakorban. So it's not shaykh to have two kavonas at the same time. And therefore, he has to be mevatel from the ma'amad to do what? To hear the Megillah, because he can't do it at the same time. So it's very clear from him also that the only possible way to fulfill the ma'amad is only when he has a gather of what? Of there's a special kavona. And he brings also to our attention a Gemara Masechta Yuma Daf Lamed Zayin. The Gemara says whoever reads the Kriyas Shema together with the Anshe Ma'amad is not yotzeh the mitzvah of Krishma, because he misses Zman Krishma. So why? Because the Anshe Ma'amad read the Shema after the Zman. Asks again the son of Rabbi Menachem Zemba, what's wrong? Why can't the Anshe Ma'amad read the Krishma whilst they are oimed besides the korban? And he says the same svara, because you have to have a special kavona for Krishma. When you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad in the Vahafta in the different parshiyos, and you have to have special kavona for the korban when you're ma'amad ala korbanos. It's not shaykh to have two kavonos at the same time. That's why they can't read Shema b'shas they're fulfilling the ma'amad. So we see this principle that the ma'amodos are not stam in the Belt. Now let's go back. Even though we said that the pasuk we derived the din of ma'amodos is from the pasuk Tishmeru, which is referring to korban tomid, and the Shagis Aryeh in Gvuras Ari speaks in a lengthy discussion that because it's written by the korban tomid, so possibly it may not be relating to any other korban. Nevertheless, like the Meforshim say, because the lashon of the Mishnah is the if we're talking about any korban tzibur, it's lav dafka by the korban tomid. So he has a lengthy discussion that it may or may not apply to all korbanos tzibur. But v'bal the stam loshen is korbanos, it would seem that it applies to all korbanos tzibur. That there has to be ma'amodos not just for the korbanos tomid. but there has to be korbanos ma'amodos for any korbanos sibur, meaning for korbanos amusafin or any additional communal sacrifice. There has to be ma'amodos. There even has to be ma'amodos for a korban yochid, like Rashi says. That's as understood from the Gemara in Masechta Sotah, Daf Ches Amud Aleph, and also the Rashi there in Masechta Sotah. Listen carefully here. Hello. Listen to something unusual. Please pay attention. We're coming closer to the Rogatchover Gaon, and you'll appreciate why I gave this whole introduction. The Gemara says in Masechta Psachim that it's not possible. The reason that the ma'amodos aren't allowed to work, aren't allowed to do any work and labor, whilst these korbanos sibur, whilst the korbanos tamid are brought. Why can't they do any work? So that it says in Talmud Yerushalmi, is it possible that they should work whilst the korban is brought? That they're busy with their mundane work whilst the korban and the Beis Hamikdash is brought on their behalf? And as I said, the Lahiris Nasr of Nosson Geshtetner explains what the meaning of that is. Because the whole focus has to be on the Avodah. How can you be busy with doing mundane work? Whilst there's a korban being brought, and you're the emissary, not just the emissary, you're the person which the korban is brought on your behalf. How can you do work at the time? Therefore, there's an Isur, and according to Tosfos, it's also Midoraisa, based on the Mefarshei Yerushalmi. And Tosfos says so mefurish that it comes out from the Talmud Yerushalmi that in at least the day you bring the korban, that's why Erev Pesach from midday. Whenever you bring a communal sacrifice, there's a prohibition midoraisa to do malacha. There's an issa malacha because you have to focus on the korban. Okay. Now, the Talmud Yerushalmi says an interesting thing. The Talmud Yerushalmi says, is it possible to have the whole Klal Yisroel be mevatel mimalacha and stand beside the kohen to who does the avodah when they bring the korban? In other words, it comes out as follows, in conclusion, that every korban tamid brought twice daily, or any korban sibur, according to those meforshim alone, it applies by all korbanos sibur, right? According to that, every individual Jew would have to stop doing their mundane work, their weekly chores. It would be like Yom Tov for them. It would be prohibited to do malacha, either the whole day or at least during the time the korban is brought. It would be prohibited for them to do work because they have to focus, they have to pay attention, they have to daven, they have to fast, they have to do all what those ma'amodos have to do, as mentioned before from the Rambam, those in the Beis Hamikdash and those out of the Beis Hamikdash. Says the Talmud Yerushalmi, how can that be? It says, V'asafta digonecha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you have to go to work. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you have to go to work, it seems like HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed you to go to work. So, based on that, they establish ma'amodos, meaning Klal Yisroel, the majority of Am Yisroel will work. And they won't be Heusenpresse. They won't sit around. They won't stand beside the korban, right? They will actually work. And they'll work for a living. Yosafta diganecha, Torah permitted it. What then? The Nevi'im, or Rishonim, or the Nevi'im, Shabi Yerushalayim, they established emissaries. That's why we needed the ma'amodos. They represent the rest of the people who are working. So the people who are representing the workers, they have the full focus on the korban, and they do the fasting, they do the davening, they do the tefillas, and they're involved in the korban. And b'meila, therefore, there's no problem. We can fulfill the v'asafta diganecha. Here we go to the Rogatchover Gaon. Listen carefully what the Rogatchover Gaon says. And now we're going to start understanding what's going on here. So first, the Rogatchover Gaon is mechadesh a chidush nifla. Listen to what he says. In the time of the Mishkan, Kol Yisroel was Geder Maimed. You hear what's going on? Kol Yisroel was Geder Maimed. The whole of Am Yisroel had a Torah's Ma'amad. You understand why? For a Pashut reason. The whole time of the Talmud Yerushalmi that it doesn't work is only because it says, V'asafta diganecha, you have to go to work. When Am Yisroel were in the Mishkan, were in the desert, right? In the time of the Mishkan, they had everything prepared for them. There was no work. They were able to sit and learn. They were what? They had peace and quiet and tranquility. There was no work. It's like today, those who have Centrelink or they have the Zionistas of Medina who are supporting them. They can sit in the kollel day and night, 24/7, and sit and learn. Baruch Hashem, Adank Meibishn, that we have the Medina, the government, who are doing gewaltige tzedakah for the Am Yisroel, etc., etc. Beautiful stuff. L'chaim. Darf mispelled sein that it should continue. So it's like the Yidden in the Mishkan, where they had Beirishal Miriam, they had Mon Min HaShamayim. They didn't have to work. That's one of the reasons. It's explained in the Mefarshim. Chassidus explains the land. That's why they didn't want to enter Yisroel, because then they would have to start working the land, etc. And they didn't want to work. They wanted to have Mon Min HaShamayim and water Beirishal Miriam, and they were protected by the clouds of glory, etc. The Anani HaKoved. Kum Tachosit, there was no Vasafta de Ganecha. And they had to bring karbonos, right? They brought karbonos. There was karbonos Tmidin, there were karbonos Sibur, and there were karbonos. And you didn't have to be, there were din ma'amodos, like we explained throughout, that the din ma'amodos weren't dafka instituted later on by the Nevi'im, Arishonim, Shmuel, and David. But the din of the ma'amodos applied all throughout history. The B'meila, therefore, Bisman, the Yidden were at the Mishkan at this stage, where we're talking about in the parsha of Parshas Behaalosecha, where we address this psuk, Zutrisa, okay? They're all begeder maimed. The Rogatchover is mechadish. Kol Yisroel is geder maimed. They had a geder maimed. They all had a din of maimed. There's a teres maimed. Every Yid has a teres maimed. That means every Yid in the desert, when karbonos were brought daily, continuously in the Mishkan, they had to stand beside the Mishkan, right? And be oimed al karbonam. This whole concept of having emissaries is only needed to be instituted in Eretz Yisrael when there is after the Ganecha, according to the Talmud Yerushalmi. Kol Yisrael got their mind. So what about it? Why is there a chiv misa? What's it have to do? So the Rogatchover is mechadash a chidush nifla, and this is appreciated only after our introduction, based on what we've explained, that the geder of ma'amodos is like a geder avoida, as we explained, to the point that it's possible that it's also essential and it invalidates the carbon. So it's just as important, or at least close to it, like the carbon, like the Kohen himself, who's doing his avoida, the actual carbonis. The Avodas HaKorban. And also the Levi is doing the what? The Shira Bepeh, the Shira Bekeli. So we need the what? The Maimed. So the Maimed is not just standing or beside, being there idly. He's totally involved in his Begeder, Bittul Korban, Bittul Atomid, if there's no Maimed, like we brought from the different Chazals and Gemaras and Biurim. The Meil and the Fizeh says the Rogatchover. Listen to what the Rogatchover Gaon says. Now let's take out Rambam's. You know the Rambam Paskins? I'll share that with you. The Rambam Paskins in Hilchas Bias Migdosh. Here we come to the Rogatchovers. The Rambam Paskins in Hilchas Bias Migdosh. Hilchas Bias Migdosh. Perik Beis Halacha Daled. Based on the Gemara in Erechin, says the Gemara. Koyen, listen. Psak Halacha Rambam. Koyen sheyotze min hamigdosh b'shas avoda bilvad. Chayiv misa. Ben koyen gadol, ben koyen heged. A koyen gadol, if he walks out of the Beis Hamikdash during the service, he's chayiv misa, he's chayiv heaven, death from heaven. What it says in the Torah, umi pesach oil moed leiseitzu pentamusu. Torah says alive, you're not allowed to walk out of the Beis Hamikdash, and if you do, you chayiv misa. And Rambam explains what does it mean. Kloima, this means loy tanichu avoda v'teitzu mevuholim utchufim mipnei gzerazu. Basically, the intent of the Torah is you're not allowed to let go of an avodah you're involved in. If you're busy involved in the service of the Israel Mikdash, is loy tanichu avodah. You're not allowed to leave go and let go of what you're busy with. It makes no difference where you're going. You can't leave go and let go of the avodah you're busy and involved in. And if you do, says the Rambam, there's a prohibition. And if you do, you chayav misa. Now, based on that, the Rambam Paskins in Hilchas Klei HaMikdash. The same applies to the Leviim. The same applies to the Leviim. And that is the Rambam Paskins in Hilchas Klei HaMikdash. Peri Gimel, Halacha Yud, V'Yud Aleph. And the Rambam, the Rogatchover explains in his Svarim Ba'arucho Beprotis that the Rambam identifies the Avodah of the Levi with his Shira, with all the Gedorim and all the criteria of the Kohen. Now, just like the Kohen is not allowed to leave his Avodah if he's involved in the Avodah. And if he does, it's Chayiv Misa. Al derech zeh the Levi, says the Rambam Hilchas Klei HaMikdosh in Halacha Yud. Says the Rambam that the Levi is not allowed to leave. A Levi is prohibited to not allowed to do the avodah of the Kohen. And also the Levi themselves are not one Levi is not allowed to do the avodah of the Levi of a different Levi. And he explains what that means. That one Levi is prohibited to help out the other Levi in a different type of service. Right, and that is those who guard the entrances, right? They're mishayarim, the look after the entrances, the exits. The alderos are those who sing, so one can't support. And if one is supposed to be singing, so he's not allowed to help the shayar who looks after the gateways, opens up the doorways. And also the one who's looking after the doorways and not allowed to look after the mishayer. Now, the Rogatchover Gaon says that the Rambam understood the Gemara in Erech Daf Yud Aleph to say that the Iker Isur is for the Levi to let go of his avodah. If he's involved in his work, he's not allowed to let go of his work to do the work of other Levi. And therefore the Rambam says in Halacha Yud Aleph, if a Levi is Messiah with another Levi in his work, which is not his job, which is not meant to be his service, Chayovin Misa B'dei Shamayim, Shenema V'lo Yamusu. So here too, the Rambam says, the Rambam took the criteria which we introduced from Hilchas Bias Migdosh by the Kohen and also introduces it and says the Levi has the same criteria that if he does let go of his avodah and puts it on hold and goes, helps out another Levi in his avodah, the din is that is Chayiv Misa, like V'lashanema V'lo Yamusu. Says the Rogatchover Gaon, here we go. The same applies for Yisroel b'ma'amodom, according to the Psikta, according to the Shita of Rav Tuvia Rabbi Eliezer. Just says the Rogatchover Gaon, just like the Rambam Paskin and Hilchas Bias Migdosh, that if the Kohen leaves in the middle of his avodah, and that's the Chayiv Misa. He's Chayiv Misa. Look there. So the same applies to the Levi, as he explains in his Svarim. So the same applies to the Yisroel, who is what? Who is involved in the Ma'amad. In other words, just like the Levi who puts his avodah on hold and gets involved in other things, is Chayiv Misa. The Kohen who puts his avodah on hold, he does other things, is Chayiv Misa. The same goes for the Yisroel b'ma'amodam. If the Yisroel is meant to be an oimed and part of the Ma'amad, and the whole of Am Yisroel, b'shas they were in the Mishkan, were part of the Ma'amad, were begeder Ma'amad. Therefore, they're not allowed to leave that post, that service. It's a service. In other words, all day, throughout the hours when we're able to bring the Karban Tamid Shel Shachar, and we're able to bring the Karban Tamid Shel Bein Arbaim, or bring other Karbanos Sibur, Yidden will begeder Ma'amad. If they're begeder Ma'amad, they have to be involved in this avodah. And if they're involved, so then they're actually doing like an avodah, like the Kohen and the Levi. If they leave the premises, they're maniach avidosam. They're leaving their mamad. They're leaving their point. They're leaving their service. They're leaving their station. So just like when the Kohen leaves his station, he's Chayiv Misa. Just like when the Levi leaves his station, he's Chayiv Misa. The same applies for the Yisroel b'ma'amodam. And b'meila, therefore, why? That's why it says by the Ma'apilim. The Ma'apilim, when uncompromisingly they go up the mountain, what does the Torah say? It says that the Psikta, they were Chayiv Misa. Why? Because the Torah therefore highlights that because the Aron, what is in the place? The Aron didn't move. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't move. Meaning the avodas of the Korbanos were done in the Mishkan normally. Everything went on. It was a normal day. If there was a normal day, all the Yidden had no right to leave. There's a law. You're not allowed to leave your avodah Anshe Ma'amad. Just like there's a law for the Kohen. Just like there's a law for the Levi, there's a law for the Yisroel. And if you're leaving and there's avodah continuing, going on, and you leave your avodah and you don't stand up to what you're meant to do, you're Chayiv Mitzvah. That's why the Ma'apilim were Chayiv Mitzvah. That's the reason. In other words, you'll take out the other Mefarshim, you'll see total different reasons why they were Chayiv Mitzvah. right? Because Hashem says, I'm not going to be in your midst. Take out a Ramban. But the Psikta says, no, the reason why they're Chayiv Misa there is because they're moving out of their Maimed, according to the way the Rogatchover explains this Psikta. The Rogatchover now explains, that's the reason why in the Chumash, you'll take a look, that where does the Torah say, V'lo yiso, right? It's only in the section where, in other words, this pasuk, take a look at the pasuk. Let's go back to our Chumash, where the Chumash tells us, let's go back to the Chumash, where it says in the Chumash, in Parashas Behaalosecha, we're going back to the Chumash, in Kapitel Tes, we're going back to the Chumash in Kapitel Tes, Uvaharich, in Kapitel Tes, Pasuk Yutes, it says, Vaharich ha'onan ala mishkan yomim rabim, v'shomru v'nei Yisroel es mishmeres Hashem v'lo yiso. What are we talking about? We're talking daytime. When is there avodah in the Beis Hamikdash? When is there avodah in the Mishkan? When do we bring the karbonos to meet in the karbonos tzibur? By day. So by day, the Yidden have a din of an Anshe Maimed. By day, they have dinim of Mamodos. So then there's an Isur to leave your Maimed. So that's where the Torah writes, V'shamru v'nei Yisroel, uvaharich onan ala Mishkan yomim rabbi, where there will be the cloud over the Mishkan. That means it's daytime. There's halacha v'shamru v'nei Yisroel es mishmeres Hashem. Now the Rogatchover quotes this pasuk v'shamru in addition to what the Psikta says, because from the Shamru we derive the same v'shamru from Shabbos. That just like Shabbos is chayiv misa, the same v'shamru here chayiv misa. Possibly the Rogatchover wants to hint that this v'shamru is also hinting the tishmeru. V'shamru means you have to be standing there, you have to have the watch. It's not just v'shamru stam gzeira shava hekesh gzeira shava to Shabbos, but the v'shamru v'nei Yisroel as mishmeres Hashem. That means the maimed is a ma'amad anshe maimed. That's where we know from the tishmeru that you have to stand beside the Beis Hamikdash, besides the kohen who brings that does the avodah. There's a din of tishmeru, which means either wait for the avodah or watch over the kohen who does the avodah. So here it says v'shamru as mishmeres Hashem, and there it says v'lo yiso. Dafka where there is a avodah, which is by daytime, it says v'lo yiso. Masha'en came by night, which is not the time to bring the hakrava, which is not the time we bring karbonos. Then you don't need the koyim avidosam. Then you don't need the levim b'duchanam. Then you don't need Yisroel b'ma'amadam. Then they're allowed to leave the machne. So therefore, when it speaks about where it's nighttime, you don't have the lab of the lo yiso. Take a look at the pasuk in Tezayin and Yud Zayin. There's no lo yiso there. The lo yiso is dafka in pasuk Yutes, where it speaks about daytime. Now with this, the Rogatchover explains, let me just say, when it says mevatlin, let me just share with you, when the Gemara concludes, well, going back to the Gemara in Megillah, mevatlin, it says mevatlin, koyanim ba'avidosim elevim b'dechodom v'yisrael b'ma'amadom kulam mevatlin me'avodoson. So it seems like they're all on par. It's the kohen and the avodah, the levi, the duchen, and the Yisrael of the maimed. It's kulam mevatlin me'avodoson. So the question arises, what is the Gemara talking about? Are they actually already doing their avodah or not? Or the avodah never started? So from Tosfos and other Rishonim, it seems that the avodah never started. But guess what? The Rogatchover Gaon, in his Sefer Hashlama, page 41, wants to learn that Pshat in this Gemara is as follows, that even one shouldn't think that Vibal, the Kohen, is already doing his avodah, and the Levi is doing his avodah. And the Yisroel is doing, he doesn't talk about the Yisroel. So if Vibal, the Rambam says that when the Kohen puts his avodah on hold and leaves his avodah behind him, or the Levim leaves his avodah behind him, you would think if Ibaldi is also chayiv misa, you wouldn't be allowed to do it, because the Rambam says in Nichlas Klei Hamikdash and Nichlas Beis Hamikdash chayiv misa. So the Gemara is mechadish that you're allowed to be mevatel me'avodah. Not just mevatel means don't start doing the avodah, like Tosfos learns. No, mevatel from your avodah means even when you're doing the avodah. And if you leave go of the avodah, you may be chayiv misa, like the Rambam paskins. Nevertheless, mevatlin to hear the Megillah. I'll call upon him. So that fits very well with the sheet of the Rogatchover in explaining this Psikta Zutrasa, where it says in the same breath It says, Yisroel ma'amadam, kulam mivatlin ma'avidason. So it's speaking even about Yisroel who are busy in the Maimed. And when they're involved in the Maimed, the Rogatchover explains this psikta to say that they too aren't allowed to leave the Maimed, and that's why they were chayiv misa. In the case of the Ma'apilim, the Mela, that's the meaning of the psikta. So that's the meaning of the Gemara, that by the Yisroel ma'amadam, even though they too may be chayiv misa, the shita psikta, nevertheless, the chiddush of the Gemara is that they may be mevatel, and that's the way that actually the Netziv Mevalozhin in his Emek Shaila in Parshas Vayechi and his Pirush Moreh Mesadim Masechta Megillah learns Lefi Shitas Rambam. I just want to say that this whole gang is mainly to explain the psikta. It's lav dafke l'shitas Rambam, because the Rambam doesn't mention any chiyuv misa and any lav in relation to the Yisroel, and the Rogatchover does that quite often, that he'll explain shitas atosvis, shitas other rishonim. Here too is because this is a tzorech in Godel, and what's pshat in this psikta, so this is something which is like fascinating, and this is like unbelievable, this really gewaltige pirush of the Rogatchover Gaon in an in-depth way had to analyze this pirush of Rab Tuvia Rabbi Eliezer. The fact is, so let's take a hope that when we say our tefillis, we don't just say a lip service, and when we say to our Kodesh Baruch Hu tomorrow morning that all what we did, that the Kohen Abavi Dosam Elavim the Cholam Yisrael b'Ma'amadam should be taka in a form of Rishal Mefarm Svasenu. So when we say the Korbanos, it should taka be in a form, in an oifen of Yisrael b'Ma'amadam, where we shouldn't just stand in shul idly or do whatever our avodah or do whatever we're meant to do idly. We should be involved in avodah sakodesh the way it's supposed to be, with all the kavanah, with all the intent, as Rashi and the Rambam explain. I just want to say that there's also, or the din of ma'amodes are reflected in many different dinim in Shulchan Aruch, and that is in relation to a shliach tzibur, that there's a possibility that even one individual could oppose to a shliach tzibur in a shul. He'll take out, there's a Tshuvas Maharil, which is quoted by Rabbi Yosef Engel in Gilyoni Hashas in Masechta Tainis Daf Chuf Zayin, Tshuvas Maharil, Shal Tshuvas Maharil, Simin Tzadik Vav, or Tzadik Zayin, I don't recall exactly, and that's also quoted in the Neisek Leah Shulchan Aruch in Simin and Gimel, the Magen Avram, from different Rishonim and Achronim, that because the Shliach Tzibur is like Begeder, the Kohen who does the Avodah, so therefore the other Yidden are Begeder Maimed, so therefore we say it's essential to do the Avodah, so therefore we need, just like when it comes to bring a korban in general, we need the permission and the appreciation and the will and the agreement of the person who brings the korbans. We also need, so his appreciation that he's the Chazan. So there's some reflection of din of Ma'amodim in one halacha Balderazeh and Hilchas Mila in Simmer Reish Samach Chesef Tes, where there is a Bala Itur who says that the father should stand besides the moil to convey that he's actually appointing the moil to be his shliach, just like the Yisroel who stands besides the Kohen appoints the Kohen to be his shliach. There's a whole discussion in the Achronim exactly if the Kohen are shlucha de Rachman or shlucha de Dan. Rabbi Yosef Engel discusses it. Yisrael Meir Dan Plotsky in Klechem, then Parshas Pinchas discusses it in length. Well, there is other Achronim. I think we had enough for tonight, but it's nothing wrong. Let me tell you, it's a long weekend, Queen's birthday. So we pledge allegiance to the Queen. Thanks to the Queen, we had a long weekend, so you can sleep in tomorrow. Chazat Ibra de Torah, se gewaltige Torah, se mamish Torah, as von Himmel. Thanks for coming, thanks for hosting, and Menshi, thanks for organizing. Good night.